Hey guys, welcome back to my Lightwhip tutorial series. On this week's tutorial, we're going to continue with our fiber building and we're going to talk about plane changes and reels. So before we get started, I just want to go over some of the terminology and give you guys a little bit of background information about planes so that you're familiar with what we are doing. So this plane right here, this is your front or forward plane, and then everything behind you is going to be your dark wall plane. So that's your back plane. A shoulder reel requires you to be comfortable with fiber wielding and spinning your whip in a clockwise or counterclockwise motion. And then once you're comfortable with doing that in front of you, then you need to get used to doing it behind you. So notice I almost just hit myself in the head. Happens all the time. And then on your right, spinning it clockwise, just like that. Woo! Awesome. So once you can do that, now you're able to do your shoulder reel. So your shoulder reel is the same thing. It wanted a piece of the booty. All you need to do is change from your forwards plane to your dark wall plane. Forward plane, dark wall plane. And then you can do it on the other side. Forward plane, dark wall plane. Forward plane, dark wall plane. So really all I am doing to execute this shoulder reel, I'm just moving my hand from in front of me, so in front of me to behind me. But you don't want to put it too far back, because if you put it too far back, it's no longer a shoulder reel, and this just kind of looks a little awkward. You have less control of your whip the further away it is from you. So you want to try and keep it close to you so you can keep that control. So this is it for your shoulder reel. Moving on into our next trick, we have hip reels. They're based on the same idea where you're going from forward plane to dark wall plane. But instead of fiber wielding at your shoulder, now you're going to do it low at your hip, hence the name hip reel. So, counterclockwise if you're fiber wielding with your left, clockwise if you're fiber wielding with your right, and then bring your whip behind you into your dark wall plane and keep spinning it at the hip. So once you are comfortable with this is step 1, this is step 2. In order to get to step 3, what you're going to be doing, if you're doing a left hand reel, you're going to turn to the right. So I'm going to turn towards my whip. So if I'm going this way, I'm going to turn towards my whip. If I'm doing it on the right hand side, I'm going to turn towards my whip. So, once you're comfortable with these two positions, then what you're going to end up doing is that when your whip gets to about the horizontal, you're going to turn, and as you're turning and your whip is at the horizontal, since it's spinning in the clockwise motion for the right, it's going to keep going that way. So if you watch carefully, counterclockwise. So do you see what the whip did? Do it one more time. So notice what I'm doing. I'm doing one spin in my forward plane, one spin in my backwards plane, and then once I do that one spin in my backwards plane, that's when I'm going to start turning towards the whip. So if you do everything together, you're going to have one turn in the front, one turn, then one. So it's going to go 1, 1, 1. So make sure when you are doing your hip reels, you keep your whip hand anchored to the hip. So So if it's my left, I'm going to keep it anchored to my left. If it's my right, I'm going to keep it anchored to my right. The reason you need to keep your hand anchored to your hip is because if you don't, what's going to end up happening is something like this. If you are trying this trick and you notice that the whip keeps hitting the back of your legs or wrapping around your leg, all this means is that you are not anchoring in the proper place. So you need to be anchoring at the hip. So I'll do this facing the back so you can see what it looks like. And just keep in mind that you actually can slow down the video. So if you're having a hard time seeing what this looks like in a slow speed, you do have the option to slow it down. So once you have your reels, that's when you can start playing with some more complicated things like switching hands. So in order to do reels when you are changing hands, you need to first be comfortable with shoulder and hip reels. Because if you're not comfortable with your hip reels and every time you try to do your hip reel, it does that and it hits you, chances are that when you go to switch hands, you might end up getting the whip in your face or another body part, which honestly hurts just as much because these handles are quite heavy. So, for plane changes, what you're going to end up doing, so counterclockwise if it's my left, I'm gonna bring the whip to behind my back. And I'm gonna try to bring it as close to my opposite hip as possible so that when I do that, I now have a perfect opportunity to grab my whip with the other hand. So just get used to doing this. And then on your right, so spin it clockwise, bring it behind your back, catch it. So notice I'm still holding on with both hands. To the back, catch it. Once you get comfortable with just this, that's when you can work on the next step. So remember, like I said in last week's tutorial, once your whip is moving in a certain direction, it's going to continue moving in that direction. So even if I put my arm out, it's still gonna keep going in that direction. And it's the same thing here. So if I'm spinning it in a clockwise motion, when I bring it behind me, notice how my whip is still going in this direction. So when you catch it, you need to be ready to keep spinning it in the same clockwise motion. So, to the front, switch hands, bring it back. So that is all for this week's tutorial on plane changes and reels. Before we leave, I just want to take this time to ask you guys to comment, like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If there is a specific tutorial or move that you want to learn, let me know in the comments below. I love hearing what you guys have to say. So that is all for this week's tutorial, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!